LC Tiger Sports welcomes in legendary head coach, 10 years at Findlay, 13 years at Bryan, in which we got a chance to play against each other, Coach Hite. Cliff Hite, WFIN out of Findlay, will cover this game for Liberty Benton, the Liberty Benton Eagles. And Coach Hite, you and I go way back, very warm feelings. You were a tremendous coach in the NWOAL back when it was the real deal, and it's just always great to spend time with you, and thanks for joining LC Tiger Sports Live.
Well, it's always great to be able to talk to the best linebacker I ever had to coach against in the NWOAL.
You know, you've been very consistent with that, and I appreciate
It's
that.
true.
And I write you a check. You get the check in the mail. I need your new address. But Liberty Benton this year, Coach. I mean, I know that you do a lot of Findlay stuff. You played at Kentucky, 1977 grad, just a great football player for the Wildcats. So you've got a lot of background in this game, and quite frankly, you were one of the most innovative offensive coaches prior to the whole innovation of the game. We played a lot of sandlot, rockhead, wing tee, robust tee football, and you brought in a lot of different creativity in the passing game. And so Liberty Benton does that. Scott Garlock in his 9th season, he's 72-12, and this Liberty Benton team is 10-1, another Blanchard Valley Conference or championship, and this team can score. This is a little bit like what you like to see, a lot of throwing, but they're balanced. But the Elker boys are just dynamite. Tell me about Liberty Benton and their offense.
Well, it's interesting because Scotty Garlock, their head coach, who is a Findlay High School grad,
Right.
and so, I mean, I've known him for forever. He volunteered to be a part of our staff in an all-star game over in Fostoria. They used to have a East-West all-star game every year, and he wanted to be on our staff. And I didn't know this until just yesterday, but he took copious notes on what we were doing on offense. And then he started telling me the plays that they run at Liberty, and it still had the same names that we had when we were coaching way back then. So it was, I mean, he said, I hope you're flattered. And I go, well, I'm amazed. He said, but I loved your offense. And I said, I'm going to do that.
Is he paying you a royalty, Coach? Because this
not
offense,
a penny, Scotty, not a penny.
When you watch this on film, Cliff, and I'll be honest with you, I know your offense. I've seen the concepts. We were around each other at Findlay and certainly played against you. They do a lot of motion, a lot of 3 to 5 wides, but they can run out of it. You know, they got a nice looking quarterback and Trevin Lieb. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that can do a lot of things. Obviously the Elker boys are next level. You know, Seth's going to go to Toledo. He's only a junior. He's already committed. So talk about their talented players, their size, the way they do things there at Liberty Benton.
Well, the thing is, I know that you at Liberty Center love your offensive and defensive linemen, but I really like this offensive line for Liberty Benton. I think that they're pretty solid,
We do too.
and I think that I think it should be a nice matchup. Now, look, I got to be honest with you. 2 years ago, I thought the same thing, and we got up there and got crushed. And Liberty Center looked like the Liberty Center I remembered, and Liberty Benton just couldn't keep up with them then. So I'm a little gun shy as far as optimism, and I have not seen them in person on the field yet this year. So I'll be watching and learning as we go, and it's going to be a quick learn because bingo, one game you could be out. But I know about Liberty Center, and going backwards where people steal things, because I said Scotty wanted to run what we ran. I remember when Rex Lingman went from head wrestling coach to doing both that and the head football coach, and at Liberty Center when I was at Bryan. So he was a rookie coach when I'd been there a few years. I'd been there a couple of years maybe. But what he did, I used to think, wow, I don't know if that's going to work. But it seemed like he took the favorite 2 plays that he liked that Archibald ran and the favorite 2 or 3 plays that Bryan ran and a couple of plays that Wasion ran and molded it into an offense. Then he took it to the next level and perfected it, and it became a juggernaut. Because, Scotty, let's be honest, we talked about this before. When you were a freshman and you were a sophomore, you guys weren't very good. And that's the last time you guys weren't really good. And the reason you got good was because all you guys started as freshmen. You all started as sophomores. By the time you were juniors, you were veterans. And by the time you were seniors, you dominated. And that program's never lost a beat. I know, if you guys go 6-4, that's a bad season at Liberty Center. I mean, And I know what that program's been. And Rex gets tons of credit. And I know he's honored at the stadium and the press box and all that bit, but he deserves it because he molded it into what his personality. And he had that wrestling tough personality that made Liberty Center so good. And we were always fearful. And the other thing I wanted to tell you, the reason we did what we did on offense in Bryan, I had some good receivers. I had some good quarterbacks and some good running backs.
You did.
And I had great big linemen.
You did.
And I had a couple of them that couldn't get in the 3-point stance because of their bellies. So we stood them up. We did things that nobody was doing, but we did it out of necessity. But that gave us a chance to really give people a lot to worry about because nobody else was doing it then. So if you ran a 5-2 cover 3 and you had a strong safety on the trips, we were going to eat you alive. And not you guys, not Liberty Center, but I'm talking normally. When I came to Findlay, we were going against Sandusky, and they had one of the most renowned coaches of all time in Larry Cook. But he was not going to change his defense for my Mickey Mouse offense. And we just burned them like 56 points we scored because they had one guy on our trips. And when it's 3 against 1, we're going to win that battle.
Well, you know, and you talk about creativity in offense. You talk about Scotty Garlock kind of taking a lot of pages out of your notebook.
Well, and he's added to it.
He has, and this offense is averaging about 350 yards per game, which is impressive. They're scoring, 41, 42 points a game, Cliff, and they're doing it with just a lot of spread concepts, and they're getting the ball to their best athletes, which you always did. You always had 2 or 3 dudes that could run it, catch it, get vertical, throw the ball horizontally, make guys miss, and you're doggone right. That was something that Bryan and I talked about. That the offensive line at Liberty Benton is different. They're bigger. They've been through some playoff wars. They block well. They run block well. So the things you're talking about with Liberty Benton, the things that you did, I can see a lot of synergies between you and Scott Garlock.
Well, and think about this, Scotty. When you spread out, that also spreads out your defense.
Right.
And if you can get a linebacker that's moved out a little bit, that can open up your running game. And that's what you want to do. We spread people secretly love to run the football.
Right.
We love to. And if you got a running back that can, do the things that Liberty Benton has, then you're smiling. And if you can get your good guys out in space as well, then it causes a lot of problems. And that's what that whole spread thing's all about. But what Urban Meyer did, he took the spread and then he added the midline option. And so people run a triple option and stuff like that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, I never even thought of doing things like that. And that made it even tougher to defend.
Well, you got a back in Zach Elkert, 6'3", 195, who's a banger up inside and sees the block and understands what he's doing in terms of cutting off of his blocks and home run type running back in this spread. Brian Babcock has a question for you, Coach.
Yeah. You
have a question for him? Oh, no, Brian Babcock does not have a question. He's just observing. He's saying, hey, man, I'm taking notes on what Coach Hite says. So let's talk a little bit about the defense. They are playing good defense, Coach. They're only giving up about 9 points a game. They have won 10 games. They've won 8 in a row after the Columbus Grove loss. But the thing that I can't get over is the strength of schedule. That Blanchard Valley conference is a little bit softer. I think their strength of schedule is 96 right now, which is not the best. Liberty Center comes in, I think, somewhere around 57. So maybe give some color to Liberty Benton's overall program, the conference they play in, and some of the expectations in that program.
Well, they're in the process of actually leaving the conference. They got it too big for the conference.
Right.
And some of the smaller teams have started to wean themselves out of the conference as well. And so it's starting to be a little tougher. They brought in Elmwood. They brought in Ada. They did some things like that. They tried for a while to get Hopewell out and people like that in, but that didn't work for them. But they have tried. But they're now looking for a conference to be more competitive for them, which gets you ready. You know as well as I do. Well, okay, let me give you a great example of what a schedule can do for you. Findlay High School, a decent team this year, but not great, but a good program, played St. Ed's last Friday, and we did the game. St. Edward's was 5-5, but they had lost to the potential state champions in Kentucky and in Maryland, lost to Cleveland Glenville, lost to Massillon, and they lost to Akron Hoban, all teams that are going to be in the fight for the state championship at their respective locations. So they were 5-5. They looked like a undefeated state championship football team. They looked phenomenal
Wow.
against the Trojans and just spanked them. In fact, we even got to the running clock part in the second half. I mean, it got that bad.
Wow.
They looked the first 5 times they touched the ball, they scored.
All right, let's talk briefly.
And
Let's wrap this thing up and talk a little bit about what your expectations are tomorrow night. You know Liberty Center very well. We're a wing T football team that loves to rush the football. We're not as balanced as what Scott Garlock has at Liberty Benton. I think that Patrick Henry gave maybe Liberty Benton a little preview as to how to manage Liberty Center. PH had a lead late in that game. Liberty went on a late drive to win. There's a little 6 degrees of separation here, as you know, Columbus Grove, plays a lot like Liberty Center. You know that. You've been around this game a long time, and they got after Liberty Benton pretty good in the run game. Liberty Benton cannot turn the ball over tomorrow. So talk about Liberty Benton, Liberty Center, and your expectations for this matchup, Coach.
Well, I think if they could establish the running game, I think they would do that. But here's the thing, too. I know you guys will, and I also know you guys will control the clock. Here's an interesting thing about time of possession. Usually, if you're a sport team, you don't care, especially if you receive the opening kickoff. And if you score first and you get lucky enough to hold a team down and maybe score again, if you have a 10 to 14 point lead, then the other team who was going to run the ball and eat up the clock is behind, and they have to do things maybe they don't want to do. So that's the strategy, I think, for Liberty Benton, is to try to get Liberty Center to do what they don't want to do. But they do what they do so well, it's going to be hard to do that. I mean, you and I both know that running game at Liberty Center is phenomenal.
It is. The offensive line has been dominant, and it continues to that tradition of controlling the line of scrimmage. As we depart, Coach, your 13 years at Bryan were highly successful. And since we're an NWOAL community and people know you so well here, you've spoken a lot of churches and a lot of different banquets, and you've been up here many times in your illustrious career. One memory, Bryan Liberty Center that our fan base can connect to. What would you say?
When Joe Ruth, our star running back, was a senior, and you guys were doing your pregame warm-up, and you were cheering Roos, 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 and you guys were so focused to stop him, and he had tremendous games against Liberty Center when he was a sophomore and a junior, and you guys shut him down. And I mean, ate him, and he was done. I mean, I don't know if he even had 40 yards that game, if that. And that was so impressive to me. And that's when I knew the Liberty Center program was not only on its way, but it was here to stay. And that's what happened. But I got to tell you a quick one if I can.
Sure.
I know I've told you this, and maybe I told you this the last time we talked on the air. But I spoke at a church in Liberty Center one time. And I stood up and I did this exercise where I said, we're going to do the clap drill. And it's to try to get off the ball all at the same time. So I yell set, you all clap. And they were good. They were good. And I kept going faster and faster and faster. And I said, I just wanted to know what it's like for the head football coach in Bryan to get a standing ovation in Liberty Center.
That is why you're beloved at Liberty Center.
I got
right
booed
there
in the church, and then they laughed. They laughed, and I became great friends with Liberty Center people. It was a weird way of doing it, but it worked.
That's great, Coach. We appreciate you coming in and doing a little time with us on the Liberty Benton Liberty Center matchup this week. We're anxious to see you in the booth, and you're always welcome in Liberty Center, Coach. Thanks for coming.
What? Scotty, one quick thing. I never tell the opposition good luck, but I always say have a good one, and that's what I have to do. You understand,
I understand
where we're coming from here.
A lot of respect.
But have a good one, okay?
Thanks, Coach. We appreciate you a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Scotty.
Take care.
All right.